Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to see everyone virtually. My name is Moaz Limaim. I'm the very proud Lynn Pipin Jardine of the best college of business in the world, the USF MUMA College of Business. And let me tell you, I'm just so delighted to be with you today. Just before we start, make sure you know that you can tweet all your questions on USF CEO Convo on Twitter. As I just mentioned, we're delighted to see you today. This is the second, absolutely the second virtual conversation with the CEO since the pandemic hit. We would have loved to be face to face, but hopefully very soon we will resume our face to face events. But let me tell you, today you are in for an incredible treat. For this conversation, we have one of absolutely my favorite people in our community, a very special guest, a very successful entrepreneur, Mr. Brian Butler. He's the founder, president, and CEO of Vistra. Vistra Communication is a consultancy leader with client in the private, public, nonprofit industries, ranging from healthcare to transportation to local, state, and federal government. He is also a very proud, decorated veteran. Thank you so much for your services, Brian. And we're just really, really fortunate to have him today with us to talk about the different phases of his career and his lessons learned and some of the advice that he will give to all of us so that we can all learn from this extremely wonderful, wise, successful, and generous entrepreneur. Please, let's give Mr. Brian Butler a very warm MUMA virtual standing ovations. Brian, I'm so happy to see you, and I cannot tell you how thrilled we are to have you with us today. Thank you for being with us, Brian.
Dean, I'm just so delighted to share stage with you. All you do for USF, which means all you do for this community, is just amazing. And I'm excited to be here and participate in this conversation today.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. There's so many amazing things that we want to be talking about today, and I just cannot wait to start. So, right, let's start a little bit from the beginning. So tell us a little bit how you grew up and what are some of the people who really influenced your upbringing and anything you want to share with us on your background a little bit, Brian.
For sure, Dean. I'm a real Floridian. I actually grew up in South Florida in a little place called Riviera Beach, in a little community where even, when I was in high school, many of our teachers just didn't expect us to go far. My parents thought differently. They both were part of the civil rights movement. My mom was at the March on Washington in 1963. She took the Freedom Train up, and she believed that education was the great equalizer. I recall in high school, I went to my guidance counselor and said, I want to talk about, going to college, and I had been in the top 5% of my class at the time. And my guidance counselor said to me, you don't need to go to college. You need to find a trade and get a job. And I went home that evening, kind of in tears. And I shared that with my mom, and she was at the school the next morning. And we all met in the principal's office, the teacher, the counselor, and my mom shared with them why it was important that they should be encouraging young Black kids to go to college, not discouraging them. And that was she had such a focus on education for her kids, for my siblings, that all of us went to college.
That's amazing, Brian. It's we're all so fortunate to have parents that really showed the values of education. So I'm glad your parents also did. You selected the military, and you started your career with the army. So how did that work out, and what did you learn from your career in the military that hopefully helped you a little bit in your professional career after that as entrepreneur?
I suspect that some of the folks on this meeting today, this invite, remember commercials back in those days that said in the join the army and see the world, and I actually believed it. So when I went off to college, I was fortunate enough to get an ROTC scholarship, a Reserve Officer Training Corps scholarship, at a historically black college in Virginia, Hampton University. And the ROTC program just really helped me focus on some of the things my parents had already taught me. The discipline, to help others, to do your best, to wake up early and get there early. All those kind of things. The ROTC department really reinforced that. And when I was commissioned as a second lieutenant in 1984, I just went on an incredible ride for the next 22 years. My Army career provided me an opportunity to command young men and women in combat. That same career provided me an opportunity to serve as a spokesperson for an Army secretary and travel on a G5 for a couple of years and work in the Pentagon. And it also allowed me to work in the White House, where I served on the Homeland Security Council for President Bush. And so many different great experiences during those 22 years. It changed my worldview. Being a young kid from Riviera Beach, you pretty much knew what was in front of you, and that's all you got to see. I was fortunate that my parents, took us on vacation and demanded that we learn and become interested in more. And I'd always wanted to go to Germany, and I saw the Army as a way to do that. And not only did I go to Germany, but I got to travel to more than 60 countries during my 22-year career. So what a ride, and I enjoyed every day of it.
Brian, and on behalf of all of us watching, and I know at MUMA faculty, students, and staff, thank you for your service to our country. We really appreciate it. We're enjoying the freedom because of the great services of you and so many others. So, you mentioned the White House, the Pentagon. Many of us on the call today, we only watch these two monuments on TV. So would love to, just very curious to know, what would a workday look like for you when you were at the White House and the Pentagon? It's just really interesting.
They actually were very similar. One of the jobs that I had in the Pentagon, I was pretty much in a role as an executive assistant for one of the senior general officers. There were most of the homeland defense issues across the nation. And a typical day for me was to arrive at work by 4:30. Make sure that when my boss arrived about 5:15, that I had already gone through a series of presentations and asked a bunch of questions, so that when she
right,
came,
is it 4:30 a.m. or p.m.?
Let's say 4:30 a.m.
Okay. Sorry.
We started pretty early, and when my boss came in, it was very important for us to run through presentations, for her to get up and see the chairman, because sometimes things happen overnight while most people are sleeping that became national security issues, and we try to stay on top of that.
That's very interesting.
My time in the White House was very similar. I didn't have to be there at 4:30, but I was typically there by about 6:45 or 7. But the day was rather lengthy. It wasn't uncommon that you get a memo or you get a note from the chief's office that said, "Hey, the president would like this tomorrow morning at 7:00." And sometimes you didn't learn that until about 6:00 or 7:00 p.m. the night before. and you just smiled and got it done because you're preparing documents for the President of the United States. There's no greater honor. So you have to give it all you have every day. And that's exactly what I tried to do.
That's a great, Brian. So let's fast forward a little bit from the military, then to founding one of the most successful consultancy firms. So how did you go through that, and what made you decide to, at the end, I really want to be my own boss. I want to start my own business.
Well, Dean, that actually was not the plan when I came to Tampa. In my head, I had this all figured out. I retire from the Army. I'd get a 9-to-5 job, maybe 10-to-3 job. I'd play golf about 3 days a week, and I'd fish, and I also would golf. I'd also play golf on the weekends. Well, when I arrived here in 2006, I actually could not find a job, and I did a little consulting work, but I just could not land a job. And I thought that since I couldn't find one, I better create one because I really need to do something to take care of my family more than just walk around the yard every day.
But you decided to do it. And I know many of our students, alums, and friends of the college really sometimes, they want to do it. They're not sure. They're worried. What kind of advice do you have to all of us who aspire to start their own business at one point in time? How can they be as successful as Brian?
Well, one of the things that the military taught me was to always have a plan and always to have a backup plan. And when I started the business, I actually took the time to really write out a plan of what this could be, and then the baby steps to how to get there. We self-funded this business. And the first, if you think about what was happening with our economy in 2007, 2008, those were not the best of times to start a business. In fact, at that time, my parents were here in the Tampa Bay area, and I'd have lunch with my mom every other Friday. For about 22 years in the military and 4 years of college, I had not spent much time with my parents except for maybe a couple of days a year. And I remember telling my mom I was going to start a business, and she said to me, "Are you reading the same newspaper that I'm reading every day?" And I assured her that I was, and she shared with me. She said, "Brian, did you pray about this?" And I assured her that I had prayed about this, and she said, "Would you do me one little favor? Go back and pray again, because the first time you may have not been listening." I actually tease her about that quite often, but I really did think this through, but it was very tough in those early days. We were new to Tampa. We didn't know a lot of people, and I was trying to start a business. So I just got up and got dressed, and every day I go out and meet people, and I tell people what I was doing. And I tell them, and we won some little small projects and small businesses and small nonprofits. And over time, we began to grow and gain some momentum. And eventually we did work in the state government space and then in the federal government space. And I look around today, we have 100 employees. We have an office here in Tampa. We have another office in the Washington, D.C. area. And I get up every day and thank God for that, but also get up every day and I hustle because I don't take any of that for granted.
That's really good. What a great lesson and advice, Brian. Always have a plan, have a backup plan, and if everything fails, try to pray again. I like that part. You never know, but not work the first time. It's really similar, Brian. My team always joke with me because they know what I say. It's like I always tell them, always have a plan, because if you don't have a plan, somebody else will make it for you, and you will not like it. So that's what I always tell them. We think alike. That's a great. Let's again, talking about difficult times, 2007, 2008. Let's fast forward to the pandemic. A little bit more than a year ago, pandemic, COVID-19 took us all by surprise. I was so thrilled once you and I were talking, and you told me actually your business prospered during the pandemic. I cannot tell you what kind of impact that statement had on me. And I was so happy and proud of you, Brian, and really want you to share with all of our listeners today, students, executives, entrepreneurs, when the pandemic hit, how did you deal with it, and what is the secret of success, and what kind of advice you give to all of us in facing this just horrible crisis?
I probably should start by saying that when I worked in the White House, I was the director of biodefense policy on the Homeland Security Council. So I worked with a team from several different agencies, and we actually wrote the first pandemic influenza implementation plan. So you leap forward to early last year, as the signs were starting to occur across the world, I was actually really paying attention. And as I think it was in March and late February, as things really started to make a lot of people a little nervous, we decided to start buying laptops because I had a suspicion that we were going to have people work from home and move out of our office location, because I had been following it and paying attention to what was going on globally, not just here in the United States. And when we shifted out of our office here in Lutz and had people work from home, we actually came up with a plan, one, to how to instill confidence in our workforce and to ensure that though we were moving out of the office, they were not alone, and how we would better embrace technology and the laptops we were purchasing, et cetera. The other thing we did was we devised a plan to stay engaged with our customers. And we actually charted out that every week, senior leaders had to check back in with me to tell me how those conversations were going with their customers. And those were not sale calls. Those were calls of concern. And how can we help you right now? What can we do for your family right now? And as it turned out, just by staying in front of them, that helped us a whole lot. The other thing we did, Dean, is because people were looking for leadership at that time. They were looking for places of confidence. We actually launched an online campaign that we called V Positive. And through that campaign, we simply sent out positive messages twice a week. And it was just amazing how much people needed those, and people will reach out and talk to us about those positive messages and messages of inspiration and encouragement that we sent out on a regular basis. But it also kept positioning us in front of our clients by taking those same steps. We did lose business right after things shut down. We lost a couple clients, and we had clients put things on hold. But a couple of those clients, we kept working with them and working for them. And actually, when they came back larger than they were prior. So we didn't abandon our clients that had been loyal and faithful to us. We found ways to continue to add value. And throughout the year, throughout the whole of the year, we actually grew, and we continued to hire, and we continued to stay relevant, not just with our own employees, but for the clients that we served. We found places to add value in things they were doing. So overall, we grew, and it ended up being our best year ever.
What just incredible! It's so inspiring, Brian, because I really like your what you did is, I think the key concept there is engage, your customers and client, and really care about your customer and the clients, and that's what you did, and we're all very grateful for that. That's a great lesson
Yeah,
learned.
I would also say, as we looked around at our community and around the country, you could see people hurting everywhere. Food lines were starting to build up. So we decided that we need to continue our focus on helping our community and really helping people. And we did that a lot during that period because I felt that if every little bit that we did to help others, it will come back to us threefold. And that's exactly what happened. We just kept working, we kept encouraging, we kept volunteering, we kept being engaged and involved, not looking for anything except to help other people. But by the end of the year, I realized it had come back to us threefold.
That's really a great lessons learned, and I know there are many questions coming from the audience. So I don't know if yes, we are ready for a question, Brian. My colleagues here behind the scene are telling me we're receiving a lot of great questions and a lot of inspired people, Brian. So the question is, what was the most valuable lesson you learned about your customer loyalty during COVID-19? That's a great question.
Yeah. Customer loyalty is built around relationships.
Yeah.
When you really understand what your customers are trying to accomplish and they understand that you're trying to help them do that, that builds customer loyalty. And we didn't abandon our customers when they were going through tough periods. We tried to continue to find ways to stay engaged with them and to help them, and sometimes just talk them through tough decisions they had to make. And that really helped us a whole lot.
I really smiling because our thinking is so similar, Brian. When the pandemic hit, a lot of our alums and friends lost their jobs and were left to their own devices on how to deal with this horrible public health and economic crisis. So that's why we offered a great certificate free of charge on post-crisis leadership, and it's just the same thing as you taking care of people, because when you do that, your client, your customers, your friend, your stakeholders will take good care of you. So I'm glad that we think alike. So as now we start receiving the vaccines, and a lot of people are having this shot in the arm with a lot of optimism. I'm just so happy every morning I read and I watch the news and I see that the number of cases worldwide and in our community too are declining. How are you getting ready for, post-pandemic? Probably, people talk about the new norm or whatever we call it. What kind of adjustment you're making? How do you leverage on your learning? And what kind of advice you give to our listeners?
I think the first piece of advice I would like to give is you must listen to the environment and process that and try to figure out what is the environment telling us. And in my case, in our business case, I think the environment is telling me that we're going to come out of this, but it won't look like it was prior. So we're already thinking about hybrid solutions to continue work. We know that working from home has not been ideal for everyone because people have different family situations. They have different amounts of square footage, that they're in, and it's just not ideal for everyone. So I'm anxious for us to get back and allow people that want to come back into the office to come back. While we haven't made a final decision, I expect that we'll have some kind of hybrid approach. But the one thing that we will always do is make sure we're taking care of our clients, whether we're in the office or in the home, and continue to find ways to do that better and better and better every day.
That's really good. That's great advice. Let's see if we have another question from the audience. Oh, see, the magic happens. All I do, I ask for questions, and here they are. Love the technology. So, what are the lessons learned from the crisis? And what about employees' loyalty and concerns? I really like this because, Brian, in my thinking, when people ask me is, what will happen? What is the impact? And I always say, through the pandemic and after the pandemic, there will be winners and losers. And unfortunately, there will be more losers than winners. And what separates them is that learning that we were talking about, but also how well you take care of your people. So I would love, this is a great question. I have no doubt that the person who asked this question is either students at MUMA or graduate from MUMA.
I agree. Great question. We made a conscious decision last year, even when in times of real uncertainty and we just didn't know how many clients we're going to lose, we continue to take care, or at least try to take care of our workforce. So we call everyone our team members, and we send care packages to them. We wanted them to know that we had not forgotten them because we were not in the office all day, every day. We sent things. We started doing weekly coffee calls, but we did something on Fridays at noon where I would give an update for a couple minutes, and we invited our team members to invite their spouses or others in their family to participate in those updates on Fridays at noon. In fact, we continue to do those updates. And there was a little small thing we did at the end of those calls every Friday. We invited our company chaplain, who happens to be my father, to close with the inspirational story and a prayer every Friday. In fact, we still do that right now.
That's great. I hope your father is watching, because I know he's very proud of you, Brian, as we speak. And if he's not watching, we're going to send him this the record of this, because we're recording it, Brian. Let me now go a little bit to the Butler's family, if I may, Brian. And I don't mean to embarrass you. You are married to just a wonderful person, Dr. Butler, who was a former colleague with us at the College of Business, and just a delightful, really person. You've been happily married for years, and now, a few years ago, I think she joined the business. So all of a sudden now it's a family business. Talk to us a little bit. We always talk about, a lot of great things that could happen from a family business, but there are some challenges too. I don't know, how do you separate between work and home and having fun, because the boundaries become a little bit blurry. So can you talk to us a little bit, if you don't mind, of course. If you mind, I'm going to ask you again.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all.
Yeah, just some of the good and the challenges, if you want.
I don't mind at all. So
thank you, Brian.
We very much have a family-owned business, and we try to create a family environment for all of our team members, whether they're in our headquarters here in Tampa, or they're down in Miami, or they're in Washington, D.C., or Chicago. We try to help them to make sure they understand this is a family-owned business, and we want to foster a family environment and culture. And so far, we've been able to do that. Now, the heart of the question you're really asking, it's not easy working with your family all day, because you do have to find a place to draw those lines to leave work. And we have really established areas of responsibility. And my wife is very involved in the business. She came into the business. She's been involved in the business since we started it in 2007. She left the academic world to come into the business full time about 18 months ago, and we had to really talk about what those roles were going to be. But my son is also involved in the business. My son Chris, who's 29, and we have to have that same conversation. But what he and I learned is that we had to intentionally find things that we like to do together where we don't talk business. We go on fishing trips. We go hunting together. We take vacation together, do some other things, and do some fun things. We go out to dinner on a regular basis, where sometimes we say this is a a dinner about business. And sometimes we say, this is a business, this is a dinner about family, or it's about whatever you want to talk about. So we try hard, and it's not easy. The other thing we did early on is I asked Chris to go and talk with other people who had worked for their fathers and how they manage those relationships. And I went off and talked to other business leaders who had their sons or their daughters working in their business, so that I can learn from some of the things they had. And I'll pick on one right now, Brian Adcock. The Adcock family has a remarkable business here in town, an insurance business and an investment business. And Mr. Adcock has been in business about 54 years. And I went and we played around the golf together. And I said, I want to ride with you because I have a lot of questions to ask you about this business and how you've been able to do this for 54 years in a family-owned business. And I have a great relationship with them now. The door is always open for me to call and seek advice and counsel. And I try to do that on a regular basis.
That's really great advice, because I know from my work as an educator and also a consultant to many companies and advisors that it's not very easy. And I'm so happy you have been very successful, Brian. Congratulations. And I know before we even go to the next question, you have to promise me that you're going to take me fishing sometimes, because I love fishing, and people are promising to take me fishing, but a lot of people took me fishing. So
I'm promising you we're going to go fishing.
All right, I like that. Thank you. Now we can finish the conversation. We're done. No, just kidding. Now, this is another great question, Brian, is what lessons have you learned that you wish you knew when you were your son's age? Any advice for recent grads? And here, for all our listeners, there's only one reason Brian has a son that is 29. He got married very, very young. Go ahead, Brian. Great question.
I did get married pretty young. Some of the things that I knew that it was important to establish, for example, with the business, I knew it was important to establish business banking relationships, but I hadn't really defined what that meant. And I didn't realize how important it was until maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And I started to better understand that it's more than just having a banker, that you need a banking relationship. And I really wish I had known that appreciated that a long, long time ago. I probably would have had less headaches along the way. The other thing is, I've always believed in having mentors and learning, but I wish I had taken more classes. And I've taken quite a few, but I wish I had taken more classes. And I better understand what my mom was trying to share with us early, that education is the great equalizer. She didn't say getting 10 degrees is the great equalizer. She said education is the great equalizer. And I had to reinterpret that. And what she really was saying is constant learning. Continue to put yourself in a learning environment. I was successful in the Army because I kept learning. I kept going to training classes, getting certifications, and I kept learning. When I started the business off, I slacked for about 5 years. I kind of got out of learning. But as soon as I got back into learning, the business started to prosper.
That's a great, Brian. Thank you. And I know you have accomplished a lot in your career so far, and you keep accomplishing a lot. There is only one thing missing, is a degree from the MUMA College of Business, and we have the Doctor of Business Administration for you. So you will have 2 doctors in the house. And actually, as we speak, I am sending you the admission letter, and you start next week. But no seriousness, Brian, we have a great question from the wonderful Anudari, and what she is asking is, what would be your suggestions for students to focus on a skill to get ready for the future? Great question. Soft skills, data analytics, robotics, what kind of really skills you advise young graduates or young students?
match your skills with your passion. If you enjoy data, maximize any opportunity to learn more, get more skills in data. If you enjoy things that involve social services, map your skills to the things you are involved. If you just do this because you think your parents want you to do it, or you think your friends want you to do it, you may not give it your all. But if it's a place of passion for you, you're gonna give it your all. You're gonna maximize every opportunity you have. I am very passionate about the work that we do, and I am very passionate about the work we do in our community as well.
So, Brian, it's really similar to one exercise I always make my students when I have time to teach or lecture to do. Ask them, say, okay, when you go home tonight, I want you to go to a room where there's no one there, no one, just you. Turn off the lights, sit, and take half an hour for you. This is what I want you to do, is really think of 4 or 5 years from now. What will make you happy professionally? Like you said, Brian, so well, not makes your parents, your friends, your significant other, what makes you happy. I want you to really go deep and go through that exercise. And it's really amazing because many of these very same students come back and say, wow, that was very powerful. And we've never taken the time to do that soul searching. So I very much appreciate your advice, Brian. Now I wanna shift gears a little bit and talk about a topic that a lot of people talk about it these days, the last few months, and mainly since probably last June after what happened in Minneapolis, a topic that you are passionate about, a topic that I am very passionate about, and I know many of our listeners are. So you've been heading a very successful minority-owned business in Tampa here, Brian. Let's start by just a really discussion. If you could share with us, how was it like when you started, several years ago? Are you seeing some improvement? What are some of the challenges? And how did you address many of these challenges? And I know the road is difficult for minority owned businesses. So would love your point of view on that, Brian, if you don't mind.
Yeah. When I started the business in 2007, I had a couple things against me. One, I didn't know a lot of people in Tampa. Two, the type of business we started and the model we wanted to follow, there had not been, to my knowledge, another minority-owned business doing this type of work. I mean, there's a lot of minority businesses of probably 3 or 5 or a few more doing this type of work, but there weren't any larger ones. And there were no African American males. I think there was 2 African American males in this community doing this kind of work. So I think people had a hard time believing that I could provide the services they were looking for. Now, I probably would not have had that same challenge in Chicago or Atlanta or Washington, D.C., but I certainly had it here in Tampa. And that's just the reality, the cold reality of some of the things that stood in the way. But, banking was a challenge. Trying to tell our story in front of bankers to help them understand that even though we're a minority-owned business, we're degreed, we have other careers, and along with us is a good investment. That was a challenge there, and it continues to be sometimes up until the last couple of years. There were challenges in winning larger projects. Some of the systems that are put in place today to help minority-owned businesses have unintended consequences. And for those of you that understand, for example, supplier diversity systems, any company that we go and try to do business with almost force us to register in their system. And that doesn't sound so bad if it's one business or 2. But we were now registered in nearly 100 different supplier diversity systems, vendor systems, which means we have to have somebody, a half FTE a year manage that system. That's an unintended consequence. And those unintended consequences become prohibitive to small businesses and to minority-owned businesses.
That's really interesting. Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
No, you go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, no, just a follow-up question here is I'm glad that things have started improving, because it's really heartbreaking what you had to go through, more than 10 years ago, and I think you alluded to the last few years you've seen a little bit of improvement. Well, what kind of advice to all minority like you, who are probably still facing all these challenges and problems, what kind of advice you give them?
Do not try to do this alone. So one of the things I did is I went and spoke with some of the larger minority business leaders here in the Tampa Bay area, but I didn't stop there. I also went and had meetings with the larger majority owned businesses, the white owned businesses in town, those leaders, and I talked to them about, how do I win work with you? If you tell me I'm not ready today, tell me, what do I need to do to become ready? Because I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to quit. And that endurance has really paid off. So when somebody tells me, you can't do something, that's like saying, get ready, because Brian's going to figure out a way to do it. So I'd say the education piece. I've taken so many business classes. I've been involved in so many business programs. I've gone through a program with AT&T, a 1-year program. I've gone through a program with CVS. I've gone through Goldman Sachs. I've done Kellogg programs. I've done programs with the Small Business Administration, Emerge, and probably 2 or 3 others. I continue to put myself in a learning place to make sure that I best understand how to compete and win in this environment.
Brian, there is one, I think Irene, if we can repost that, what Irene said, she said it much better than I am. Thank you, Irene from Tampa. Brian is an incredible human being, in addition to being a very successful entrepreneur. I just I have to show you that, but thank you.
Irene is one of those people that challenged me, early on when I talked about the business. She encouraged me to go down to SBDC and take classes. And to be frank, I didn't want to do it. I thought that was below me, but I had to humble myself and walk in that door and say, I need help trying to figure out how to win with this business. And I met great people down there, and I continue to go down there even today. And I learned so much. And I can remember the first time I sat down with a counselor in SBDC, I think Charlene, I walked away with the yellow pad, 3 pages of notes. I still have that yellow pad around here somewhere because I just got to keep it. But I walked out thinking, I'm never, ever going to be able to do all these tasks she just gave me. But so as I would check off a few tasks, I'd go back and see her. And she and I laugh about this today, but she really forced me to think about some things that I need to think about that I was refusing to think about in order to have a good business and be competitive in this environment.
Thank you. And my job is to take credit as a dean. So, SPDC, the Small Business Development Center, is part of the Muma Carro business. And that's why it's very successful. That's why it helped you, Brian. And I'm very grateful to our team there. Irene Hirsch was the leader, and now Eileen Rodriguez. They're doing a great job helping so many of the small businesses, especially during these very difficult times. And just
go ahead. That I don't recommend somebody go down and see Eileen. Rarely. Okay. In fact, just last night, because small businesses call me from all over the country. Just last night, a small veteran-owned business that I know, we've done some work in the veteran space together, spent about an hour and a half on the line with me last night. And I pointed him to the SBDC in Pueblo, Colorado. And I said, you gotta go in there and meet those people that can help you. So, and I feel the same way about the SBDC here, and I'm living proof that it helped me.
That's great. And Brian, the Muma Kanju business is partnering with the Tampa Bay Partnership to publish every year and present the state of the region, our region Tampa Bay, on different metrics on the competitiveness compared to 19 other regions in the country. And unfortunately, one of the metrics we're still really lagging behind is that gap between white and black in our community. And so this is something that I am committed to help at least our community reduce that gap, because it is not just the right thing to do, but actually it makes perfect business sense. We need a community that have a very inclusive economic growth, where everybody has a shot on making a good living. No one is left behind, because when nobody is left behind, they participate in spending. They rent houses. They buy cars. They buy from departmental stores, and this is how our GDP for the region improves, and everybody wins. And one of the things that also will help us move the needle is to work with our business community here, small, large businesses, public, private, non-profit, to really be more diverse and more inclusive. I think that's so important. I'm so happy, as you saw this morning, Brian, that in partnership with two great organizations, the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Stanley Cup winners, and Jabil, one of our best companies around here. We're teaming up at the Muma Kanju business with both of them to present completely free a 7-week certificate on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. And really the purpose there is to help individual and companies be more diverse and more inclusive, because it makes perfect business sense, not just it is the right thing to do. And we show them how to do things. And I'm so happy, Brian, this morning I announced we had 15,000. I was just informed now we have 20,000.
That's just amazing.
And still growing. So, why do you think, from where you sit, and you just have an incredible point of view, better than anybody, because you are minority, you are successful entrepreneur, you care about your community. What kind of advice you give to businesses, why they should be more diverse and more inclusive?
So before I answer this, let me share this. The 15,000 or 20,000 people that sign up for that program, that's great, because that's more influencers within the organization. But this is a leadership issue.
Yeah.
CEOs and leaders in our community can change this. Yeah. Moaz, 48% of our business is non-white.
Yeah.
And these are well-paying jobs. These are, but we're diverse intentionally, because I'm intentional about us being diverse.
Great.
And when some of my leaders come in with a slate of people, I ask the questions that need to be asked. Where's the diversity in those candidates?
Yeah.
And I don't allow them to say we couldn't find any. I ask hard questions. Well, where did we look? Who did we speak with? And because of that, it's helped us to become a better, diverse company, because I have a responsibility as being the leader to ask these tough questions. I do the same in our vendor supply system. And we're a small company. We don't have a ton of vendors, but the few we have. When we built our building, we bought an old bank a couple of years ago, and we knew we had some construction projects before we moved in. And I made sure that we used a pool of diverse suppliers to help build out our business. Some of the folks that we have monthly contracts today are diverse suppliers. Where I'm getting at with this, if I can do it, the big businesses can do it too. But it can't just be somebody in the company thinking about doing it. It's got to be the leaders of the organization taking responsibility and ensuring that it gets done. And until we do that, we're just going to keep having these conversations about starting more programs.
That's a great advice, and that's why we're really trying hard to appeal to all the leaders of our business community, Brian. So many questions, but I really want to be fair to our audience and give them a chance to ask. So yes, our colleague, wonderful Dr. Paizanali is asking. I see on the website that Vistra Communication use airports as a major advertising platform. With most of the airports closed or at minimum traffic, what changes do you see in your B2B relationships? Did you pivot that business to any other channel? That's a great business question. Thank you, Faizan.
That's a great question. So we have a partnership with Clear Channel Airport. And we have a partnership with one other organization where we actually we have an arm of our business that sells advertising in airports. As you can imagine, people weren't buying a lot of advertising in airports over the last year. But because we are committed to taking care of people, we help our team member that's out there doing that. She's still working. Things are starting to pick up. I know she's going to have a better year this year. So we found a way to pivot, but continue to work and to keep her engaged in the sales area. I'm badged in, I think, 2 airports now. So I'm in and out of airports a lot. And I watch the flights, and I talk to Joe Lopano and I talk to his team about what's happening. We're thankful here in Tampa, the numbers are starting to come back up. And I know we need that because we have small businesses out of the airport. We have minority-owned businesses out of the airport who need those customers coming through the gate. So we're hopeful that as people get the shots, that'll start happening, sooner versus later.
Good, great answer. My almost follow-up question, Brian, is you're known to have a great eye for talent, selecting talent to your leadership team. And so what do you look for when you hire or you promote people to the C level to help you run this wonderful business?
I'm a pretty basic person. For me, it starts with attitude. Does the person have the right attitude to be a leader in our organization? Does the person have the same sincere concern and appreciation for our values? Is the person in this for themselves, or does the person buy into the Vistra way of doing business, putting our customers first? So I put a lot of focus and attention and thought into having those kinds of discussion and learning about the individual before we bring them into our leadership team. And we've been pretty successful. I've made some mistakes. I pulled the trigger a couple of times, probably too fast in the last 14 years, but that's okay. None of this is perfect, but we've recovered from it. And overall, we have the best leadership team today than we've had since we've been in business. And it's a great place for us.
And one of the other reasons you have the best leadership team is your spouse, Dr. Butler, is part of that team, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm giving you a chance here, Brian.
You're trying to help me.
Trying to help. I will send you the bill later, okay? And might need your help too. All right. Varun is asking another great question. Dear sir, how did you keep your organization away from bad corporate politics? I really like that, because bad corporate politics from within can destroy the company, and it's not limited to big company. I've seen smaller company being destroyed by that bad politics. Great question, Varun.
I'd say, first of all, I'm a team player. And I believe in the value of the team, but all teams need a leader. And in the Army, I always believed in the power of the team. The team winning is more important than any I anywhere in there. So if we could just continue on with team wins and help the team understand that when we win, we all win. Not one individual, but we all win. And that's really what helped to get us through the last 12 months, is that team spirit. And what that means is, you can't tolerate foolishness in the work environment. You can't tolerate backstabbing. You can't tolerate people not working together. And we have spent a lot of time over the 14 years building the kind of culture that we want. And we're very, very proud of it. And that culture in itself helps us to stay away from some of those issues.
It's really good. What I always tell my team is there is no I in team, but there are 3 I's in responsibility. And I really want and make sure I count them responsibility. And there are 3 I's there. So that's great. Oh, look who's asking us a great question. Our very good friend and the chair of the board of our Tampa Bay Chamber of Commerce, the one and only Ms. Yvette Segura, a good friend of both of us. And Yvette is asking, as an active member in the community, please share your thoughts on the importance of community service and involvement. Great question, Yvette. And Yvette, we know she is a model and giving back to our community. So thank you, Yvette, for your leadership, what you do for the community, and for this great question.
Yvette's a great friend. We actually went through Leadership Tampa together. We serve on the executive board. I'm honored that she's the chair. I get to spend a lot more time with her this year. As you know, I'm in line to be the chair in the next couple of years. So I really get to sit there and watch a role model and friend perform and help her be the best chair that we've ever had in the Tampa Bay area. So the question she asked about the value and power of the community and us working in the community, we have an obligation. We have an obligation to help those who need help. We have an obligation to help those who want help. And we have an obligation to not just take from this community, but to give back to it. And there are many, many ways to do that. Whether it's serving food or delivering clothes or washing clothes or serving in our schools. There's so many different ways that go well beyond writing a check to give back to our community. And the more people that give back to our community, the better that our community becomes.
That's what a great advice, Brian. Thank you. Is there anything? We're almost out of time here, Brian. There are just a lot of questions there, and we'll try probably to follow up with you. Oh, see, that's this is the last question from Jeanette. Jeanette says, how does Vistra use research? Do you do surveys, focus groups, etc.? Let's hope that Jeanette is not a competitor and is trying to. No, but that's a really good question.
Research is very, very important to us. In fact, we built an in-house research team. We perform quite a number of research projects. And one of our biggest customers in that space is the Veterans Administration. We have 3 or 4 or 5 different types of surveys that we do on a regular basis for the Veterans Administration. Research is so important to just about everything we do in one aspect or the other. So to Jeanette's question, yes, and yes, all of the above. That's how we use research. Not a day goes by that we aren't using some type of research to help our clients and to help ourselves.
Brian, I couldn't even see where the 1 hour went. Just really amazing. I think Leonard said it so well. Great conversation. Thank you, Brian. Anything you want to just that we did not touch on, you want to share with our audience, any message you want them to go home with? And my good friend and colleague, Dr. Dirk Lieber, said, we need more visionary leaders like Brian in our business community. Amen, Dirk. Absolutely.
It's an honor to be here having this conversation with you, Dean. It's a bigger honor to serve our community and grow our business at the same time. We're in the right place at this phase of our life, and we're never leaving. Well, we love it here in the Tampa Bay area. We love the vibe. We love the sports. We love the weather. We love the people. We love being involved in the business community and other aspects of this community. And I can't think of a better place I'd rather be right now.
Brian, I just cannot thank you enough. It's I hope our listener enjoyed this as much as I have. when do you have the opportunity to listen and benefit and be inspired by a veteran, a minority, successful entrepreneur, a great father and husband, a wonderful members of the community, a small business owner, a minority business owner? I mean, just it's so many things we have covered, and I am so grateful, Brian, for your friendship, for everything you do for our community, and you see there everybody is just saying how much they enjoyed this from all of us today, and from everyone at USF and the Muma Canada Business faculty, students, and staff. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for everything you do for our community, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you, Dean. Let's go fishing.
Yes, let's not forget that. And let's not forget about that wonderful certificate. You can register. The places are getting rare and rare. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you
so much. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day. Thank you for joining us today. Stay tuned for the next wonderful conversation with the CEO.